Hi, I'm Dave Vickers and welcome to the Photo Show. In today's episode we're looking at a story that actually took place 25 years ago. Last week on Facebook some close friends of mine posted that it was their 25th wedding anniversary, and I actually photographed their wedding back in 1992. So I thought it would be a really nice idea if I could find the original negatives, scan them and make something for them for their 25th wedding anniversary. Remember, if you like what you see on the Photo Show, please comment, like and subscribe in the boxes below. Let's see if we can find the negatives from the wedding 25 years ago. So after a bit of searching around, I actually managed to find what I was looking for, which are these, which are the negatives from the wedding that I shot 25 years ago. Let's have a quick look at negatives inside. And as you can see, they are shot on 120 film, so medium format. And you can tell by the fact that these are square negatives that they were actually shot on a Hasselblad. So these were what's called 2 1/4 square. So on a roll of 120 film, you get 12 shots. So just as a difference between shooting stuff on digital and shooting stuff on film, you'd get 12 shots on a roll of film. And looking at this, I shot 9 rolls of film. So the amount of images you took in the days of film were hugely different. So let's have a quick look at these and see how they look closer up. So here we go. As I was saying before, this is shot on 120 medium format film, shot on a Hasselblad 500 cm, and this was shot on colour negative film. In the days before digital, you would very much shoot towards what your output was looking for, and because these were a wedding and you'd be looking for prints at the end of it, you would have shot on colour negative film rather than colour transparency. So here we have it. It was shot on, I believe this is Fuji 400 ISO colour neg film. I'd have picked 400 ISO because that was a film speed that would have given me the ability to work in the low light of the church and outside in the brighter sunlight. So you also didn't have the option there for changing your ISO during the shoot like you do with digital. So that would have been what I've chosen. So here we go. That's the negatives. They're looking pretty good. The next thing I need to do now is to scan these to get them into the computer so we can start working on them in Photoshop. So let's move on and let's scan a negative. So I'm actually going to use this. This is an older Epson scanner, but it's an Epson Perfection 4490 Photo. And the great thing about this is it's actually a flatbed scanner, but it has the ability to scan negatives and transparencies as well. So if we lift up the lid, in the lid we have the backing here, but this actually lifts out. So let's lift that out there. And as you can see, in the lid of the scanner, we've got a second light source. So as well as the light shining from below, you're also getting light shining from above. So you're getting light shining from the bed of the scanner there and above for it to be able to scan the negatives. So the negatives actually sit in a holder. You get different size holders for different size films. This one, as you can see by the size, is for 120 film, so 2 1/4 size film. So the first thing I'll do, let's load the negative into the actual scanner itself. So I'm going to want that negative. So the negative has to go in the wrong way round. So it's actually, as you're looking at it, it's actually inversed. You can flip it around in Photoshop afterwards, but it's just easier to scan it so it's working there. So there we go. The negative is now in the carrier. Can you see that properly? There we go. And that now fits. You have a tab on the side of the holder, which corresponds to marks on the side of the scanner here. So I'll line those two up. Shut the lid of the scanner. And next thing we do now is we move across to the computer and we set up the scanning program and begin to scan the negative in. Okay, so it's opened up the scanning software. Now there are a number of modes you can use on this. You can do it in home mode, but because want to make sure I get really good quality out of this, I'm actually using it in professional mode, so I've just adjusted a couple of the settings. So first off, up here you've got document type. Reflective would be if you were using the scanner as a flatbed scanner, but we're using film, so we're going to click film. Below that we have film type, and you can see in the drop down there we've got positive film, which would be your transparency film, color negative film, which we're using, and black and white negative, so we're going to click color negative film. Next in this section we've got image type. I'm going to up this to be a 48 colour bit image, so we're getting the most detail we can out of it, so that when we put it in Photoshop we've got lots of latitude to be able to work on the images. I'm going to keep that on, you've got choice of best or draft. I'm going to keep it on best because again we're looking for really good quality. Resolution, this can go up to 12,800, but because of what I'm using it for, if they really do want anything printed much bigger, I'll scan an individual negative, and as you'll see in a while, it takes quite a time to scan on each of these negatives, so I'm going to go for 4,800 DPI. And that will produce a good size file. It will produce a sort of a 200 megabit file that you can use in Photoshop. So it's good enough for most print sizes, unless we're planning on doing a poster or a billboard. I think this, for what we're using, is fine. Everything else I'm leaving as is. The one thing I've done is in configuration is I've gone to film size and I've made sure that I'm on 6x6, which is 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, which is 2 1/4 squared, which is what the negative size is. So I'm going to click OK, and the first thing I'm going to do here is click preview. The scanner's now going to start working. What it will do is it's going to produce a preview for me, and because we've told it it's color negative film, it will produce a positive preview for me, so I'll be able to see the image as it should look. So we'll just let it do the preview scan, and then we'll come back and move on to the next bit. So preparing the thumbnails now, and there we go. It's prepared the two negatives that we've got from that size. We can have a look at them as the thumbnails. We can click it up as a full size. So you can see there, it's given us a really nice scan. We're actually getting a really nice scan of the negative. So let's go back to where it says thumbnail. I'm going to make sure both of these are ticked so that I scan both of these negatives. And like I said, I've got 94 to 100, almost 100 frames to do. So you can appreciate the amount of time it takes to scan each frame. This is going to be quite a project. So if we start off now, we'll just do this one and we'll hit scan. It's going to come up and ask me where I want to save it. You might not be able to see that. Let's bring the dialog box in. There we go. It's asking me the file settings. I've got a folder saved, so I'm going to click OK. And now this will begin scanning the two negatives. He says it's a scanning 1 of 2. So I'm going to leave this to scan now, and we'll come back at the end once it's scanned and we'll have a look at the image and see how it looks. And just so you know, this is just starting to scan now, but it's scanning these two negatives at 48-bit color, and this is going to take 22 minutes. So just to scan these two negatives is going to take 22 minutes. So we'll come back when they're done and have a look. Okay, so we're coming to the end now. As you can see, it's less than a minute to go. It actually didn't take 20 minutes. It took about 12 to 15 minutes to scan these two frames. But as I was saying before, with nearly 100 frames to do, this is going to take an awful lot of time to scan all these negatives in, let alone working on them afterwards in Photoshop. So we're coming up to the end now, so let that finish off scanning there. That's it. It's now saving the file to the folder that I asked it to save it to. And there we go, that's saved the file to the folder that I want. So that's the basic settings. I'll run through them quickly again. I set the document type as film. I set the film type to color negative. I set it as a 48-bit color file so that we had plenty of detail to work on in Photoshop. Scanning quality I had as best. Resolution I had at 4,800 DPI. The sizing will take care of itself because I've already set the scanner up to recognize it as a 2 1/4 size negative. So that's the scanning done. Let's pop into the folder and have a look and see what the actual scan looks like. Okay, so now that we've scanned the negative and we've got it onto the computer, I'm now going to open it up into Photoshop so we can start to have a look at it and start to work on it. So let's go to File, Open. We'll come down. I've scanned a lot of them now. And we're looking at this one. So let's open up the file now into Photoshop. Okay, so there's our scanned file. Let's bring it up to full screen. If you look down the bottom here, you can see that it's actually a 281.5 megabit file. So it's huge. It's actually a massive file. When you compare the size of the original negative is 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, or 2 1/4 square, 2 1/4 inches square. What we can do here is just have a quick look at image size here. So we go to image size. You can see here now that we've got the image size as it was scanned. We scanned it at a resolution of 4,800 pixels per inch, and that's giving us basically almost a 6 centimeter by 6 centimeter square image at that resolution. But I'd want to change that resolution to a print resolution, so we'd bring that down to 300 dpi. And you can see now that it's instantly changed the width of the image. So it's now an 84, basically 84 by 84 centimeters, from being 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, 84 by 84. So that in inches would be basically 32, 33 inches square. So from a tiny 6 centimeter size negative, we've managed to get it up to what is basically an 85 centimeter size image. But that's fine. I'm going to cancel that out, because what I'm actually going to do, this original file will be saved, but I'm actually going to crop this so that I'm getting the shape of the image I want. So I'm going to press C on the keyboard to bring up the crop tool. I'm going to come up here, and I've got a preset here which is a 10 by 8, which is a very nice size for sort of wedding prints. So we can see we've got that there. I'm actually going to rotate the crop there and make this into a landscape image. That's looking great. So I'm going to press enter, and that will now crop it down. You can see it's at the moment it's still a 281.5 megabit file. Once I press that, it's now entered, and it's now dropped down to a 20 megabit file, 20.6. So that's giving us a good size file to work on, and it'll be a nice size to have printed out if they want it printed out afterwards. So I'm going to go Control 0. And there's our basic image, and we can see already that we do have some issues from the scanning. You can see in this area here we've got some dust and marks. There's some marks on the face as well, but you're kind of in a catch-22 position here really. You could spend a lot of time cleaning the negative beforehand, but there is a possibility you could damage or scratch the negatives. These negatives are 25 years old, so as much as I sort of blew the dust off them before I scanned them, they are going to be dust and marks from the scanning. So you've got two choices. You can either clean the negative up before you scan it, or clean the file up once it's actually been scanned. So that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm actually going to clean the file up so once it's been scanned. So first thing I'm going to do is to duplicate this layer. So Control and J. So now I'm working on a fresh layer over the top. I'm going to get my zoom tool, and what I like to do is basically just zoom into the top quarter of the frame. So basically dividing the frame into 4. So we'll zoom in there on the top quarter, and now we can see all the little bits of dust and scratches. And what I'm going to use for this is simply the healing brush. So I'm going to bring up the healing brush tool, and I'm just going to whiz around this image and just clean up all of the little bits of dust and hair marks. Some of them will be from the original development of the film, some of these have obviously been gathered by the film over the 25 years since it was taken. But basically I'm just going to whiz round and clean up all of these dust and scratches. So if I get on with that, and we'll come back when I've finished just whizzing round, you can see all I'm doing is just spotting out all of the little dust marks and all of the little scratches, just so we've got a nice clean file. So I'll carry on doing that, and we'll come back when I've finished doing that part. Okay, so I've basically gone around the images in the image in quarters. I split it up into quarters just so I've got areas to work in. I'm on the last little bit now, so I'm just clearing up the last few little scratches and marks on this image. Last couple. Fantastic, and I think we've got enough there to actually carry on doing what we need to do now. So that's that there. Let's just quickly show you before and after. So there's before with the dust and scratches from the scan negative. Now we've been around and worked on it. It took about 10 minutes, but like I said, it's your choice whether you spend the time cleaning the negative beforehand, but like I said, I feel that you do risk scratching or damaging the neg, or whether once you've got it digitized and into something like Photoshop, you can clean it all up and you've got a nice clean file. So let's bring this back to full screen. So there we go. Once again, that's before with all the marks. There they are, all gone. So let's merge those two layers together. So Shift Control E to merge those together. So now we've got those merged together, we'll just start and just do some basic adjustments like you would do with any other digital file. Obviously you haven't got the latitude to work with like you would with a RAW file, but this is now a JPEG file, so it's, you know, very similar to what would come out of your digital camera. So let's start with a curves adjustment. We'll go Control and M. And you can see here that it's actually, you know, scan the negative. You can see by the histogram here that we've got a good latitude from the darks down at this end to the lights down at this end. We're getting most areas covered here. So let's put a little bit more black into that. Lighten the skin up ever so slightly. And there we go. I think that's looking much better there. I may just take out a little bit of the color saturation. So I'm going to bring in a vibrancy layer. And you can see here with the vibrancy layer, if we pump it up, we're getting more color there. But just take it back a little bit. Let's go 15%. Actually, I think 12%. I'm not going to play with the saturation because the saturation is a lot harsher. So if you see, if we bump the saturation up, the colors get really garish and over the top. If we drop it down, they become a lot more muted, heading towards monotone. So I'm going to keep the saturation at 0 and just drop down the vibrancy. You can see there it's quite subtle. That's beforehand, that's afterwards. But it's given that sort of, giving it a slightly, you know, what a modern wedding photo would look like, the slightly muted colours, not as vibrant and as punchy as the original image. I think basically, as a basic wedding image, I'm happy with that. Maybe do a little bit of sharpening on it. So we'll zoom in around the eye area. And let's do a high pass sharpen. So I'm going to Control and J. I'm going to come up to Filter, and if you drop down the menu here to Other, one of your options there is High Pass, and that's very over the top. So you can see there that it's really, we're starting to get halos and stuff around the image. So I'm going to pull that back, and I want it so you can actually just about start to see. I only want the sharpening to sort of affect the edges of the image. So there you go, 1.8. Let's go 2. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see there, obviously that doesn't look very good, but what we need to do is change our high pass layer here from the blending mode of normal. You can go through the options here. We can do it as overlay, soft light, hard light, and I think looking at those, I think I would pick soft light. You can see before and after, and I'm actually going to drop the opacity down on that a little bit again to about 80% there. Let's come back full screen. You can see there the sharpening is not full screen doesn't make a massive difference, but it's just added a little bit of edge back into the image. So I'm going to merge those down, and now I'm going to Shift Control S and save this. And I've already got it marked up as Leah and Lee because that's our lovely couple here. And I'm just going to save that as AA to show that it's been adjusted. Click Save. Click OK. Now I've got the file open. I think one final thing, and it's what I would do on a modern wedding that I'd shot on a digital camera. I'm actually going to make a nice black and white out of this as well. So while we've got the file open, let's use the Nik Collection software, and I'm going to use the Silver Effects Pro here. So click Silver Effects Pro. There we go. The image is now opened up in the Silver Effects Pro program, and this is by default gives you just a nice neutral black and white. And you've got all of the adjustments over here that we can start to play with. So see if I can bring back a little bit more detail in the dress. So I'm going to drop the highlights down. You can see there we're starting to get a bit of detail in the dress. I'm going to drop the mid-tones down as well, a little bit as well, just to give it a bit more punch. And I'm going to up the dynamic brightness by a touch as well. About 10% there. Amplify the blacks a little bit just to give it a bit more weight to the image. Slight touch of contrast. Add a bit of structure into it as well. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to say that's done. Just a really quick black and white image from the original colour. See now, you know, in the original time when this was shot, to have taken a black and white print from a colour negative, they never looked correct. Trying to print black and white from a colour negative, the images always looked flat and there wasn't much contrast in them, and it was very difficult to get a decent black and white image from a colour negative. These days, by scanning it in and using software like Photoshop or the Nik Collection, it's very easy to make a really good looking black and white from what was an original colour negative. So here we go. We're now back in Photoshop. There's the original colour image with the adjustments we made. And now we've got a black and white version as well. I'm going to merge those together, so Shift Control E. I'm going to do a little touch of curves here just to check. So you can see we're right, the blacks are nicely there, the whites are nicely there. I'm going to lighten up ever so slightly around the face area. And that's looking fab. So now I'm just going to Shift Control S and switch that double A out for BW, standing for black and white. Click OK. Job done. So there we go. We've taken from scanning a medium format 2 1/4 size colour negative, scanning it into the computer, getting a nice size file, and we can always go back to that file. I mean, like I said, I've sized this down as a 10 by 8, but if they came back to me and said, Dave, I'd really like, you know, a huge canvas print from that picture, we've got a large file that we can go back to and work from, and, you know, make a larger image from. But for now, that's going to do absolutely fine. I haven't told them I'm doing this yet, so if they see this video, that's going to be a nice surprise for them. But hopefully I can get what I'm doing to them before they actually get to see that. In the next episode, I might actually put together a custom disc for them. So we may have a look at sort of making a cover and printing on a disc to put all these images on to send to them. But for now, I'm Dave Vickers. This is The Photo Show. Thanks for watching. See you next time.